Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order at 6:01. All right, first up here, we got a roll call. Out there in Zoom lands, Maria and Dave, and then in person, we'll start.
Julie Paroff,
Tony Farrell, Facilities Director.
Amber Wilson, Recording Secretary.
Judy Pullen, board.
And Gardner, Resource Coordinator.
Cheryl Hammond, business manager.
Paul Lozowski, Craig Huckleader.
Kathy Harmon. Jane Dickey.
Julie McKenzie.
Right. Next, motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right, who makes the motion? Who'd like to second it? Julie, second. All right, any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed? All right. Next, motion to approve the minutes of May 9th, 2023, regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
All right, you makes the motion. Who'd like to second? Maria got it. Maria seconded it. Yes.
I had a question. I don't have them in front of me. I don't think they're in the packet. But in our about the limited choice policy, I think that was on, I did make a note of it, page 5. I wonder if it identifying specifics about the people who had applied. I was specifically sensitive to reference to the SEL class. I mean, I know we had the discussion in open session and this right now is an open session, but the minutes live on.
I think it would be a good idea to move that.
And then that would be,
It's about five lines down in that paragraph under B,
one of the.
under old business.
So she noted that one of the families has a child who would be in the SEL program at LES.
Okay,
I'm not sure
Why don't
that's.
we just say has a child who will be at LES?
Yep.
Fine.
Just
Yeah.
take that clause out, who will be.
all right. All right,
Just take out in the SEL.
hearing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next. All right, community board comments. Yeah, yes, Judy.
I would like to thank Kathy for her service to LES and wish her luck in her new position.
Here. I'd like just to second that as your colleague and co-principal. It's been such a pleasure.
I was going to put that in my board report, but I'll move it up to this point as well. It really has been a pleasure to work with you. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm glad that you're going to a position that I know is going to be wonderful for you. We will miss you very much. I will miss you all as well. And I was going to put mine. Well, we're just done this. Thank you very much for your support and everything that you have done for me. I appreciate it very much. And I hope we stay in touch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other board comments? Maria.
Yeah, I have a mother actually from the elementary school who's interested in being a backup bus driver for this coming year. So I was wondering how I could help, assist with giving her information. She wants to get her CDL and she wants to know if she doesn't have that much money to pay for that part of it. So she wants to know if she can talk to who I can put her into contact with. She's very interested in riding a bus. So hopefully we could do something there.
Contact us. We do pay for the school bus driver endorsement piece of it. And
Okay.
and any of the training associated with that. We, in general, don't pay for getting the CDL part of it because that's separate, but we certainly are available to pay for quite a bit of the expense involved in getting licensed to be a bus driver.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, who can I talk?
I'll hold you to that.
Greg said he's gonna pay for it.
The CDL part.
The CDL
How much
part.
is it?
That's
About
expensive.
$4,000?
Yeah,
No.
no, five.
It's a couple
It's,
times.
it's,
Yes.
Amber, put that in bold.
Okay, that was an uninformed comment. You heard that.
Have her contact us and we'll see what we can do.
okay, should I have her contact you, Lauren?
Well, if she contacts me, she's going to wind up talking to me and Cheryl, so either one of us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I retract that uninformed comment on my.
Do that.
But we'll have a GoFundMe.
Bold.
Yeah, let's do a GoFundMe.
It's in the money.
Maybe not, do a GoFundMe.
There you go. All right. Any other part? Nope. All right. Public comments. Public. Any public? All right, not seeing any out there in Zoom land. Beautiful. All right, next, superintendent report. Go ahead, Lauren.
All right, our last day of school for students is Friday, day after tomorrow, which will be an early release day for students and for staff. The high school graduation will happen at 7:00 that evening. Probably indoors, given what the weather is looking like, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. All of our other graduations, the sixth grade step-up ceremonies have been happening. Chester Andover is happening tonight, and tomorrow is Mount Holly. I'm sure you'll talk about that. And also all of our administrators have now been hired. Just to go through that, Dale Mann from Arlington, Virginia will be the principal of Cavendish, Joey Blaine at Chester Andover, John Broadway and Kate Beath will be the principal, assistant principal at Green Mountain, and Deb Fishwick will be here at Ludlow. They will join Craig Hupfader, returning to Mount Holly. Also, Emma Vastola will continue as our literacy coordinator, Julie Para as the math coordinator, and Gardner is going to be transitioning from curriculum coordinator, which will remain in through the summer, to being a classroom teacher, teaching grade 8 at Green Mountain starting in the fall. And I'll be here for another year as well. At the moment, all of our Ludlow and Mount Holly teaching positions have been filled. Hopefully it stays that. We do have some open para positions, so if people are looking for work, please check the TRSU website and job opportunities. Mount Holly School tested negative for PCBs. I'm sure Todd will talk about that a little bit. Unfortunately, Green Mountain did not, and we're having conversations about that. So anybody who has questions, if you've got students going to Green Mountain, please, you can direct things initially to me or to Todd. And if your questions are about health concerns or other concerns, we will direct you to where they need to go. Let's see, it's been a month. I was in Burlington on May 17th for the Vermont School Board Association School Board Officer Superintendent Training, along with Paul Zakowski, and on May 18th and 19th for the VSA Annual Spring Meeting. Wonderful to have all those happen in person. I talked about this at the TRSU meeting. We had an excellent keynote speaker at the Vermont Superintendent Association Conference named Jamil Adams. Take a look at his website. He works in the Situate, Massachusetts schools, and he calls his approach to student management LIT, for love, inclusion, and trust. He was a very inspiring speaker. We're hoping to have him, and I think we've arranged it, to have him come and speak with our staff in the fall during our opening convocations. So knocking wood to make that happen. In these very difficult times, his message is, among other things, that we should try to be the love that hate cannot defeat. And something that I think we can all stand to remember. Our all board retreat will be July 20th at the Cornerstone Room in Jackson Gore. So we have that room reserved and set. They have a small fee for us this year, but we're going to pay it and go there. We will do breakfast and readings at 8 o'clock There'll be an agenda that will go out, and we'll go to 3 or 3:30. I'll send an agenda out to all of our board members. This is not a Zoom meeting, it is in person only. Lunch will be provided. I hope everybody makes an effort to attend. The Vermont School Board Association facilitator is a new person in that role, Debbie Singizer. She's newly on board. I said I'll share the agenda. We're going to review board roles and responsibilities, which is good not only for our new board members, but also reminders for veteran board members and administrators. We will do a Robert's Rules and Open Meeting Law workshop and review, which I think is also good for everyone. And then in the afternoon, we will go over our progress on this year's goals. We'll review all of that and set our goals for the 2023-2024 school year. So again, we had enough people respond when we sent around that timeframe that we should have a quorum, but people's schedules change. Please do your best to be there. It's an important thing for everyone. Let's see, the climate survey results for 2023 are now up on the TRSU website for people to look at for all of our schools. And what is not there yet is a link also to last year's and the year before, which are buried somewhere on our website. They're still available, but it's not easy to find. And the most value from it is looking at the changes from year to year in the different categories. I also don't yet have up there a sort of executive summary to let you know what some of those changes are to look for. I'll get to that as soon as I can, but the link is on the TRSU website so that people can go and look at it for all of our schools, both for staff and for families. A couple of other things, the General Assembly adjourned on May 12th, but it is reconvening for a veto session next week on June 20th. The veto session occurs if the legislature, as part of its adjournment resolution, includes language allowing it to reconvene to address vetoes. Since it occurred, it's been transmitting bills that it had approved to the governor for his consideration. Once the governor receives the bill, he has 5 days to either sign it into law, veto the law, let the bill become law without his signature. The governor vetoed the budget bill, H494, signed the school safety bill as 138 into law. That safety bill has a requirement of 2 additional safety policies, which you're going to look at today in first reads. Because of the upcoming veto session, we're still waiting for a number of things to go to the governor. The Education Legislative Collaborative is delaying issuing its final legislative report until all the business is completed. They anticipate issuing that final report in mid-July. So there are a couple of other things, and the one I think of most import is that today, the governor allowed H165, which is an act relating to school food programs and universal school meals, to become the law without his signature. And he sent a letter to the General Assembly, which you can find online, but basically says that it's going to cost a great deal of money, and he details the money that it costs. With H165, the legislators added $20 to $30 million in property tax pressure to pay for school meals for all students, including those from affluent families. This will be paid for by all Vermonters, including those with low income. The governor says that's not progressive education funding policy. Progressive policy hurts the families we're trying to help. I know a veto would in all reality be overridden and further distract us from the work we should be prioritizing for our kids, like reversing pandemic learning loss, addressing declining math and reading scores, addressing youth mental health challenges, which inhibit learning and more. Therefore, our governor says, I'm allowing H165 to become law without my signature. From our perspective, whether you agree or disagree with his various statements, it means that universal meals will continue next year. Everybody should know that. And a couple of other things I have to talk about are actually in here, unless there are questions from you.
Virtually.
You in the climate survey, were the responses this year, the respondent rate, was that consistent with prior years?
Yeah, we had a little bit more in some of our schools, but overall we tend to get about the same amount. We had a little bit higher response rate from staff in a couple of schools that didn't respond so much in the past. But overall, it's not out of alignment with what we usually get, which is somewhere in the vicinity of 50, 60 families. Sometimes we get a little bit more. We usually have from both of the schools, somewhere around 20 to 30 staff members. In our smaller schools, a little bit less.
So it's,
Oh,
okay.
Yep. We usually, our responses tend to hover somewhere around 20% of the actual parent
Got it.
population. Where we did have a higher response this year than we had in the past was actually from we give a modified survey to the high school students to do themselves. And we made some changes to how it was being put in front of them so that the teachers were with them saying, do this now. So we had close to 200 of our 300 plus students respond to it.
That's good.
It's true. I mean, we've talked about that, about trying to schedule it so that during the week when we are sending the survey out, of trying to schedule some meetings, a spaghetti dinner, something like that, to get people to come in and then ask them to fill it out while that's happening. So we get some more responses.
Any other questions? Right, thank you, Lauren. Next, principal reports, go ahead.
So testing is complete. We are all done. We're excited about that. Went well. Last night, we had our evening performance of The Little Mermaid at the Ludlow Town Hall, and was performed by the LES Thespian Club, and it was a huge hit. The students did a fabulous job. It was a lot of fun. I talked about last month, the Mrs. Ryan's class, second graders were doing a poetry night. It was amazing. It was adorable. The children wrote poems. They had a wonderful time reading them, and it was really cute. And the whole thing started because she tossed some poems out onto the carpet in the classroom, and they just couldn't get enough. And she said, we have to do a poetry night. So it was a huge hit as well. Our sixth graders had a fabulous week at Keewaydin. They came back, and we had graduation, and that was a whole lot of fun. We had dancing as a tribute to celebrate Heidi Bates for her 38 years of service, because she dances every morning in the classroom. And so there was a huge dance for her. And it ended with the ride on the fire truck through town. So the tradition of the fire truck. And as for our sixth graders moving on, 4 of our students are going to attend Green Mountain. 1 is going to attend Mill River. 1 will be attending Woodstock, and 3 will be going to Long Trail School. Our big excitement this week, we applied for a grant through the Home Depot Foundation to put up a greenhouse, and we were awarded the grant. And yesterday, they came with this huge team of people, and they brought seeds, and they brought flowers, and they brought vegetables, and the children got to plant in containers. They redid our beds, our raised beds. So those are all done and looking beautiful. They haven't finished the greenhouse yet. They will come back with a smaller team tomorrow to finish that. And then we will have this beautiful greenhouse with potting benches and flowers and vegetables everywhere. And in addition, it has been dedicated to Heidi Bates because of her love of gardening and her love of the outdoors. So in honor of her 38 years, it will have a plaque on it that is dedicating it to her. It is located on the by the front entrance. If you, as you're walking towards the front door, look to the left. It's really neat. Let's see, we're going to have field day tomorrow, and the sun is going to shine. It'll be a beautiful day. In case anybody didn't know what the weather report's going to be. It's going to include lots of fun stations. The Kona ice truck is going to be here, thanks to our PTG. Our new teacher, who's going to teach 5th and 6th grade, Dennis McNichol, is coming to spend some time with the students tomorrow as well. And Deb Fishwick and I have been spending a little bit of time together, chatting back and forth to try to make for a smooth transition, and she will be here tomorrow as well. And then my personal thank you to the board for my time here. Thank you. Please feel free to come and water a plant over the summer.
There you go.
I would volunteer if you need help maintaining. Like,
They've left watering cans, everything.
I'll talk to them.
It's okay. It's, you know, just a little.
Okay, Mount Holly School. I'll echo a couple of things that Kathy highlighted. We also have completed all of our benchmark end of the year assessments. Starting to see some of that data, and we'll report on that, you know, as we get a complete picture, but there's some promising growth that's happening. Our sixth graders had a wonderful time at Key Wave, just loved it. Came back with all kinds of ideas for things that they wanted to carry back. Like one of the things they do is they keep track of how much food waste there is at each meal, and they graph it, and then they try to reduce it. So that's in the works for coming fall. We
Compost, you guys compost.
we do, yeah, for sure. The bike trail has been a big project this year, and we completed phase one of that, and then the pump track is complete, and the students are already planning the next phase to double the size of the trail. So they've got all kinds of ideas and some grant writing ideas, some volunteer kind of community service ideas to help make that happen. A few weeks ago, we had civilian response to active shooter training. That was very intensive, and it was difficult for a lot of staff to talk about seriously. A lot of really important shifts in mindset occurred in terms of going away from just a pure lockdown approach to more of an options-based response. So that was very positive. We've had a lot of field trips, end of the year field trips to Binns and Montshire. Just took the sixth graders to Great Escape. That's a really fun tradition. Preschool went to a sheep farm on Holly. Just I could go on and on about that. I won't. Field day was a huge success on Tuesday. We picked, well, in the morning, we had our traditional staff versus sixth grader basketball game, which was really intense, very well played. The sixth graders have never been that skillful. They really gave us a run for them. Great passing and really fast pace. I was sweating. Then we had a food truck that charities brought to school for a big cookout. And that was also to recognize all of our volunteers. And then field day was in the afternoon, and Ted Panassi did a wonderful job with that. I have a little bad news. We have a wonderful bus driver, Dennis, who is moving on to a really great full-time job. It's going to be very challenging, very happy for him. He's a wonderful person, and just it's the right thing for his family. And I want to thank him for his years of service. He's going to a good place. And I'm not going to talk very much about this because it's really in the nascent stages, but I've been working with one of our paraeducators, Zoe Tribole, around trying to find some flexible pathways for paraeducators who want to eventually become teachers. So Zoe already has her associate's degree, but working through a 4-year bachelor's degree and a teaching certificate. And Lauren and I have been discussing some of the ideas. have had a successful meeting with Rick Reardon at Castleton and a couple of professors there, as well as a person from the state who seemed very supportive of the idea. So a big key would be having a scale, like having enough educators that want to have that kind of a rising educator path. So hopefully I'll have more to report on that this summer. And then our graduation is tomorrow night, 6 p.m. We're going to do it outside. And that's followed by a caravan, like a figure eight through the whole town, with lots of cheering families on the side of the road. And our students mostly are going to Mill River, but we do have a couple that are going to Long Trail and one that's going to
It's gonna be a pleasure to
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Next question. All right. Greg. Curriculum reports.
I have just some very brief updates here because it's not looking very curriculum-y at the moment. Our ESSER reporting is rapidly speeding to, oh my gosh, it needs to get done moment. We've been working with a company called APA Consulting, which was hired by the Agency of Education to look at how supervisory unions and districts throughout Vermont have chosen to use their funds. It's not punitive in any way. It's just to see how things were distributed, where the need was, and how might those things be supported as we move forward when there isn't this kind of bulk funding available. So I'll be meeting next week twice with our representative and then throughout the summer. So that by the time that we get to the fall, we should have some real reporting to give you, which says, here's what's happening with us, here's what's happening across the state, and take a look at it and see where we are. So it will be a summer of ESSER reporting, which will put me in a very, very good mood. It will. I'm sorry. They've been great. It's easy to laugh at it just because there's a lot of it and it's sometimes complex, but the process has been great. So I'm dropping bits of my job and not dropping bits of it. So I'm still doing some grant writing. We have the special education grant, which is for coaching for the next 3 years. I'm going to be working with Kyle Giacomo on an after-school grant, which will cover everything for the next year that isn't covered by ASP at the moment. Yes. So it's a 20-month thing. In terms of sort of training and looking forward into the summer, we have a cohort of folks going to Best Conference, including me, which is really an essential time for us to work together as we work on figuring out what MLSS is going to look like for GRSU. And so it's very, very intensive, very good work. There was a lot came out of it last year, and now we need to make it actually go. So, and that's something we're looking forward to. The admin retreat is the week of July 24th, shortly followed by new teacher orientation, new para orientation, and the public retreats earlier. And then we go straight into hello. It's another school year. Well, that's yeah. So I'm also retaining like mentoring and a few other parts and facades that just need to get sorted out. So anyway, so like I said, it's not very curriculum-y, but it's very money-like.
And we also have a report from our math.
Absolutely.
All right. Before that, any questions, comments for Anne? Go ahead.
My Zoom windows are on the way here. So let's start off with some of the things you heard about literacy and showing. Okay. and want those students and the lessons that they learn. That the support that's all those things in the classroom and belong. For social studies.
Could you go back
Yeah,
for
sure.
a second? We've talked about this before, but I really like drawing attention to that statement in the cloud there. That when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower.
And I'm gonna,
Mentioning again.
and coming up.
Thank you.
For learning. For social emotion. I've happened to pick. Beyond that. Video here that talks about ways to actually academic. Where ruler is another math problem for you to consider today. And I just want to. There's a, in this case a map to show you. There's how you feel about it. That's the recognize and just like we want to. About it. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to think about that. Noticing the okay, and I don't have that enough, but I'm going to add Here's one. The student is clear counting strategy, arriving at what solution? But counting. So relying on the number. So down here. Interesting. Seven, so a little more efficient. Starting at 0. Okay.
Yeah.
Students who could this way. All of the more importantly, good question.
I mean, I like that way.
This way?
The other way, our way.
Oh no, our way. The US traditional alphabet is not a.
Oh.
It's just that.
So
Is-
my question about that though is like, so with my child, he trying to do all these other ways, and then during COVID, mom was the teacher, and I showed him that, and he was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like all of a sudden, he could like he was getting the answers right.
Right.
So like
And there's. You know, it's a notation. What's going on behind it? Take 7 ones. One of my tens for 10-1. You can do is
Also might not actually you don't have conceptual understanding of why that works, and you might make a silly mistake and not even know because the numbers don't have meaning to you.
don't get too much.
But this is really a very common
Yeah.
parent question, and it's a good question.
And we're not posing that parent having all these connections. Also, times this, okay?
Forest of math.
The forest is, all of there's
That would be a great T-shirt. The forest is math.
Yeah.
That would be.
Their supports. Tree in the forest. fertilizer. Have different ways. There, this is laid on top of it. You have and everything prior to there. Prevention is for that's the focus. Oh, okay, it's on the left side. Want to exactly verbatim, the same. Got 4 hours and appropriate. Certainly meets. To pick up a calculator to figure. We number. It was. Previous members. Okay. And until. And it happened. As is a good.
Now we call them math.
Math hands, exactly.
I still use my math hands, just to let you know. They're here, they're always with me.
Nine multiplication, like.
Counting strategies is where it all starts. These are always with us, so. Um. Okay. Good. Um. On the way, but. Bands your. And now we've almost got, and we've only. More overlap. Student isn't. The others, they. Quickness. Because. Brain is. And then in. Long.
Julie, a couple of people who are not here in person are having trouble hearing you.
Oh.
And I don't know whether there's anything that's adjusted with it.
Julie, come over here.
Come over there. Okay.
You're too close and you're off to the side.
Is that it? Okay, well, you don't have to get up, I can just. No, sit right there. Is this better?
Let's try that. Can
Maria's-
Maria, can you hear?
Is this?
I can hear, yeah, I can hear you. She was, I think, too far from the mic. That's better already. I can hear all of you. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so that's the progression through the grade levels. And here's the similar chart. This is a multiplication chart now, as you can see from the numbers being different. Times one, if you multiply a number by one, it's not gonna change the number. That's sort of a basic property. The times twos are extending the doubles addition tax that the student already mastered in theory. Fives and tens. In the earlier grades, we do a lot of counting by fives, counting by tens, so you're building on that, but taking it to a more efficient multiplication kind of thinking. The commutative property, students don't necessarily know it as commutative. They think of it as like the turnaround rule, but you basically cut the chart in half because it doesn't matter which order you do it. The multiplication. The square numbers is a next strategy to work on. And you still do have some white sections, but here you can start to that number sense and flexibility. So for example, if you want to do, say, 8 times 7, and you're struggling with memorizing that one, but you can break it down into a couple of others that you know and then can combine through addition, then you still got that one mastered and that can happen pretty quickly.
Like 7 times 7 plus.
Correct.
7.
Exactly. So very similar to what I was saying about addition and subtraction and multiplication. I didn't really talk a lot about subtraction in the other one, but the idea is if you master addition and understand that subtraction is a missing adding problem, it's an addition problem, missing one of the numbers you want to add, then that's really how you teach the subtraction. Same thing with the division partners to this. Okay, so shifting gears to how we're doing. As Craig and Kathy said, testing just finished, so we have not had a lot of time to look into this. But I have included in my report some of the TRSU level results. At the top here, you see a spreadsheet that was the comparison of winter to fall. And then at the bottom is the new results, spring to fall for math. Some things that, and really what I want to highlight here is we look at 2 major pieces, achievement and growth. So for example, in achievement, the achievement percentile for kindergarten is 73rd percentile, up 10 points from winter to fall. That's a great win. The growth is also up 10 points for kindergarten at the TRSU level. Also great news. When you look at first grade, we lost a little bit in achievement, but we made gains in growth. So that's a mixed story. And then when you look at 4th grade, it looks both the good and the not so good. The good, we want to understand what's being effective and do more of it in more grade levels. And the areas that we need to grow in, we want to figure out how to actually make that happen.
You get detailed test results so you can drill down to see if like the majority of the kids face the same problem.
We don't, in math, we don't see the problems. So not at that level, but we can drill down into, based on the score and sub-scores, which learning
You can see the
target areas.
concept, yeah.
Yeah.
Are these ones timed? These, no. Students can take as much time as they need.
Can you sort the results by school?
These results are available by school, but since they're so fresh, that's really, we want the principals involved in that. We haven't had time to look at it at that level.
Good question.
This is the same data, but in bar chart, I'm just, the circles are highlighting the same 2 things I just talked about in a visual format.
Do you want to explain that a little bit? Julie?
Sure.
I think that's really an easy way for people to
Yeah,
see.
okay, so we'll talk about the kindergarten case. So you can see the blue bar is what the observed growth was in the winter compared to what the target was. This is a national norm test. So you can see our observed growth was below the targeted growth as far as winter results was concerned. But here, while we're still a little bit below, the gap is close to. So that's the way, the blue chart is what we did. The yellow diamond is what the target was.
Then you can see in 1st, 2nd, and 6th, the blue is connected to the red,
Correct.
which is a good thing.
Zero is kindergarten.
Yeah, and there's not pre-K data. And so 4th grade, you can see that's a challenge.
Right.
For the perspective of this board, I think Ollie pulled out,
Yeah, we plan to do that.
Once we have this data for length of time, this is all, the spring data is great. We'll go through, and we'll go through by district and we'll go through by school. And then looking into the concepts within each grade.
I've included the 7th and 8th grade results. We do not test the 7th and 8th grade 3 times a year. We test them only in the fall in this particular tool. So what you're seeing here compares this past fall to the fall previous. So this school year compared to the school year before. And for median percentile wise, it's not that much different, but you can see that there have been some shifts in the bands. For example, the 7th grade only had 15% proficient and 20% proficient in distinction. And then likewise for the 8th grade. I've also included some high school data. This is based on PSAT and SAT scores for math. The way to read this chart is, say, for 9th grade, the median for our 9th graders was a score of 400 in math. The benchmark is 450, so we have a gap there to close. We did close that gap a little bit in the 10th grade, but then it widened again in the 11th grade. 6th grade, any student who took SAT, it's not just seniors, so we have some work to do there. Even though it's a math report, Emma and I talked, we did include some reading data for you as well. And what we think we're gonna do is next year, as these benchmarks happen, as opposed to math or literacy curriculum reports, we'll have benchmark data reports that will address both when building principals and teachers have had a chance to look at the results. But it is in the report at the same level. Good news story here at the high school, our median at the SAT level is actually higher than the benchmark in evidence-based reading. Okay, so what are we doing to continue to improve teaching and learning? The thing I want to highlight here, I've mentioned before, is the ongoing assessment project training that we have teachers engaged in. This is a systemic formative assessment system that is a way for teachers to use the data in their classrooms to understand where students are and what to do about that for each student, how to plan their instruction. So that 2nd grade problem with the ribbon that we did, a teacher would be looking at those 4 things and then bringing those, as I said, to the classroom so the students could see the connections between those. And the teacher would be noticing which students used which strategies and then supporting the students that were using those counting strategies in ways that would help them move toward more efficient strategies. And ensuring the students that were already at the procedural method understood why the procedural method worked. Here's a couple of quotes. This quote here is from the facilitator that is doing the first 2 sessions for us. She actually is one of the authors and a principal researcher in the OGAT method. And she summarizes really well what the point is. You need a program, and we have one, a K6 in everyday math. OGAT, when teachers go to it, get smarter about how to use that program effectively with students. And here, this is a picture of our first session, which was on additive reasoning, counting strategies, and addition and subtraction strategies. We had a great turnout. There were 13 people, I think. We had an administrator there, and this is what she had to say about it. We had several classroom teachers. This is a comment from one of those classroom teachers. As a coach, this is what I'm really looking for. It's a good PD when a teacher walks out saying, I got stuff I can use tomorrow. And then we also had interventionists attending and seeing the connection to their work. I especially like what was said here about sort of the common language that we can all have to talk regardless of our role. Coming up at the end of June, we're going to do a session on multiplicative reasoning. Beth is going to facilitate that for us again. In August, we will run a 2nd round of addition so that we can give all teachers an opportunity to participate. And then next school year in the fall, we're going to offer fractions, and in the spring, we're going to offer ratios and proportions, which is moving into the upper grade levels of the middle school. And then we'll sort of repeat the cycle to make sure there are multiple opportunities for all teachers to engage in this training. That's it. That's the question.
Thank you. Very informative. Yeah, good. I understood that most of it. I understood most of it, yes.
So if you remember, you're thinking about your response while you were doing those things, your understanding.
Yes, yes.
It's good.
All right. Next, TRSU facilitators, director. Go ahead, Todd.
I'll try to be quick, but I do have a fair amount to get
Do you
through.
have a PowerPoint?
I can help you with one.
Oh, Todd, you might want to sit over here, so.
Yes,
Yes,
probably.
hearing you.
like we can call it.
So Dave Martin and the task force will be meeting on Monday, the 19th, with the bond process, which is going extremely well as far as I'm concerned. We've had some good turnouts and we're moving in a very good direction. So that's gonna keep going and we're on schedule with the initial schedule that we had set up
What time is that?
at 6.
And where is that?
We're not sure yet.
Oh, okay.
It's either gonna be here, if we can get in at 6, and if not, at the Roost. Okay,
Whatever.
Yeah. So I'll touch base with Kelly on that and we'll get something set up. As Lauren alluded to, Mount Holly, tested negative for PCBs. Ludlow-Mount Holly, take a big sigh of relief, you have no PCBs. Because we do. So I'm not gonna talk a lot about this, but I do feel, because you do have 4 students coming to Green Mountain next year. I have to say something that we don't like saying to anybody is we don't know. So we have environmentalists coming, we have the University of Iowa coming, we have, there's a state toxicologist that's been in contact with us, there's been the DEC, I could go on and on and on, and I could talk for an hour because the water is gonna get muddy, but what we're being told is that this isn't catastrophic at this point. So we don't know. We just don't know, but there's gonna be a lot going on this summer at Green Mountain, and we don't know. I know a little bit after talking to the environmentalists today, but it's gonna be complicated for a little bit. But we are gonna have enough room in our building to hold everybody at the school without moving any students anywhere.
Yeah.
So even if we can't use the classrooms that they say are tested high in numbers, we have enough room to move people around and make that work.
They're safe, the numbers for most of our classrooms are either below the actionable level at all or within a level that the state says is acceptable once remediation is begun.
Yeah.
And we will follow all of the recommendations, and we will be doing everything that the state says is approved and acceptable, and nothing that is not.
And we have to say this, that through all this whole process for over a year, any questions you have about PCBs, we can try to answer them. The best place to go is either the AOE, or the Department of Environmental Conservation, or the Department of Health, if you have questions about PCBs, because we are not trained on the really detailed aspects of.
We can tell you what we're doing.
Yeah.
We can't give you the science or the other reasons behind it.
Yeah. So we move away from PCBs, a quick update on your bus, Mount Holly, the bus is done. I talked to Cressy today. I'm gonna go there and get the bus, and Cressy's coming. I'm gonna hand them the title. They're gonna hand me the check on Monday or Tuesday. And that will be the conclusion of that process. That'll be done. Hopefully Craig can find a driver. PFAS update, not really great news, but not horrible news. We're kind of in the clutches of the state. So we have decided that we're just gonna, we haven't decided, we just have to ride this out. It's not costing us any money at this point. So there's nothing more we can do except wait for the state to move at their pace, which everybody knows is at a snail's pace. So we're at the mercy of the state to move some paperwork around. Cheryl's been knee deep in some paperwork with them and moved everything she needs to, so we're where we are at with PFAS. We just have to wait and see, and I will let you know as soon as I know something different. The last thing I have is we have a fairly serious electrical problem here at LES. Maybe more than a year ago, they had a transformer problem, is what they think initiated this problem, and they have the main 400 amp 3-phase distribution box has gotten weak. Mike's had problems with it. It is finally done. So at this point right now, and part of this building, they have no circulator pumps. Anything that runs on 3-phase on this end of the building does not work. So if they wanted better, whatever, the air quality, whatever it is, they couldn't do it right now. They can. Mike has got a quote. we would like the board to make a motion to approve of using capital improvement money to get this done. HB Energy is giving them a quote, $13,964. This would have been done in the bond. This was one of the items that EEI was planning on doing that can't wait. And we've talked with EEI and they're on board with this saying, I mean, it needs to be done, but they would have done it and they would have done it just like this. So this is the right thing to do. So, but we do need the board's approval to use capital improvement money to move forward with this. And Judy,
How much is in the fund?
$93,336.16.
Good judge.
And the other
Approximately.
question I had was,
So if we do this, it's not going to have to be redone.
no, so that's what we call EEI.
That's great.
They will just, it should just be one thing that got done that they can take out of
The bond.
that bond project.
I'll make a motion to take, do you want it
$13,964
from the capital
improvement fund. Yeah.
improvement fund?
All right, we got a motion. We have a second. All right, any second? All right, any discussion on that motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, excellent.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Unless anybody has any questions.
All right, next. Go Cheryl, your turn.
Don't you go to medical care?
Yeah, how you gonna match Chair if you want, it's up to you.
Stay there. You just have to be far enough away. Okay.
No, it's just there.
Zero.
From there. That's the speed.
Okay, so you have May folder. And we still have some of the savings that we talked about with the tuition and Joe Banya's position. She went to 0.25, I think, in January or something, so there's some savings there. We still have the time studies that I love to do, which those are to be able to take positions that are close to special ed and regular ed services, and to be able to divide them up for between the two. And what we have to do is for special ed, because now we have this new block grant that we have to prove what we spent on special ed money, and that's to be a certain percentage based on the block grant. So and we have to be able to prove to the state at some point of how we did that, and we have chosen to do this. So that's what we're doing. So that will impact it. Won't change your bottom line as far as the pairs in the building, but as far as the mental health counselors, we will add some to your budget, and then special ed assessment based on is out. So that's for the mental health counselors, the special ed teachers and paraeducators. One thing that I did bring up with TRSU, and I want to bring it up here, and hopefully I can articulate it better than I did there. So we have $284,702 that we're using as a carryover, and that shows up as a revenue on our financials. But we don't literally move that money. It's kind of a placeholder that says that we have a surplus and we're going to spend it. But in order to spend it, we actually end up having to deficit spend. You won't see that as a revenue showing up. So when we roll the year over, that negative balance rolls into the fund balance, and then we have less fund balance. So while we've talked about you having surplus, you will have it, but in theory, it will work out. So when I come back at the end of June, or in August, we come back at the end of June and I tell you what the balance is, we'll have this discussion again if it comes into play, so that we can understand. And if we end up having a surplus on top of not using that, that will give us money for the next year down to put into our budget. Any financial questions? Because that was so articulate.
That was great. That's
Okay, a couple of things. One is, we got a letter from Visbit, who is our insurance carrier for our property, our vehicles, our stomp, errors and emissions. And our premium went up $27,106. Now that's district-wide, that's not just for this. It's a 9.2% increase over last year. which is huge. Last year it went up significantly as well. Cybersecurity, again, that was kind of what hit us this year. And I think it's the same that's come back. And also, the unemployment, they said, is still been kind of up there, which surprised me a little bit, being that everybody's looking for work. Everybody's looking for staff.
Cheryl, the rates based 3-year look back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we're in a pool, so they do really look at everybody when they do it, but they also look at our experience, and so that, we have the big pool of protection, but then they come back down to what we got.
Thanks.
So I have a couple of things coming up on the agenda. So I won't get into those now, but one of the things that I would like to ask the board, Todd actually has done a great deal of work for us, even though he doesn't work for us in the capacity of a transportation coordinator, but he's helped us with getting the buses fixed. He's helped us secure another bus and done a lot of work. And so I would like to ask the board to consider paying him a stipend of $2,000 for the work that he has done on behalf of Ludlow-Mount Holly. That was over and above what his duties. That's not his work for Ludlow-Mount Holly.
Someone second that motion.
Sure, I'll second the motion.
All right, Julie seconds the motion. All right, discussion.
Is an annual stipend or a one-time stipend?
So that's another conversation.
For one.
This is a one-time.
The one time. But I think it's something that we need to think about and consider. It's very helpful that Todd has a lot of experience with the buses and the Green Mountain buses, and just to be able to do the maintenance aspect of it for us.
And we have in the past, I think it was 4 years ago, prior to my being superintendent, there was a discussion about whether we should have, rather than a Green Mountain Unified School District Transportation Director and no transportation director for Ludlow and Mount Holly, whether we should have a TRSU level transportation person. And the decision of the TRSU board at the time was, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to consolidate it. I don't know whether that's where we should go, but it's certainly with the changes in transportation and busing for Ludlow-Mount Holly, when we are beginning our talk about the budget for next year, it would be good for us to talk about that again.
Am I remembering correctly? I thought that was largely driven by the fact that Green Mountain wanted their own person.
It was, well, I think it was, yes, that's part of it. It was also driven by having members of the TRSU board who felt very strongly that we shouldn't have centralized positions. That each school district should, not just Green Mountain, but each school district should have their own people. And that rather than having a facilities person for the whole SU, everybody should have their own. At this point, we know that we have a lot of things that line up. This example with the use of the buses, all of it demonstrates that we do work together. And there are some things where it would be useful for us to have that level of alignment. It's certainly worth the discussion, but this is just for
This one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Julie.
So could we, I know you're talking about looking at it in the budget for 25, fiscal year 20. But I'd love to see, or I would request that maybe we bring this back to the table before the start of the school year. If we want services when we need them for backup in transportation. I think that would be fair.
Sure.
Yep.
We're gonna ask him anyway. We can certainly be talking about making sure we compensate.
Yes, I just think it would be better to have it in writing before the start of the school year than come to us at the end and say, we ought to give them some money.
It's a great.
All right. Okay, any more discussion on the motion? We kind of started at $2,000 for this year. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. for
It's
helping.
appreciated. Yeah.
Thanks for supporting, Tom.
Take your wife on vacation.
Teach you how to make a PowerPoint.
Yeah, compare consulting fee.
Consulting fee for PowerPoint instruction. All right.
I need it too.
All right. You all set there for now, Cheryl?
Yes, I am.
All right, any questions for Cheryl? No? All right, moving along, so we got some old business here. All right, we got 6 policies, which is the second read and adoption, if we're good with it, so we'll start, I'll just do one at a time here. We'll do the first one, E14, communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff. We looked at these last month, and I'll look at them again. Some make a motion to approve the E14.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Judy makes the motion. Someone second it.
I'll second.
All right, Julie seconds it. So the only thing I see, at least on my copy here, it says measures or students and staff. So I think it just says 4 at the top for the title. All the way to the top.
Yep.
So that's all, just have to say 4.
There's a font issue that's bothering me. There's a font size, number 2.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next, let's see, number 2. This is A1 school board policies, role and adoption of, or the policy really says role and adoption of school board policies. Doesn't it? All right, that's the official title for A1 policy. Someone like to make a motion to approve that?
So move.
All right, Judy makes the motion, we'd like to second it. Julie seconds it. That's right. Okay. All right, any discussion on that policy? All right, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Yep, opposed? All right, next, now, I'm just gonna read the policy. This is C3, which is a board meeting, public participation at board meetings.
At our committee meeting, didn't we talk about, and I'm not seeing it on this policy, the change about not only making the speakers list, but that they could have the opportunity to set a time limit? Like the chair?
That
I
is
don't see it
correct,
up here.
Yeah, I remember that.
I wonder if this is the correct one.
Time alive.
Remember, you put it in 2 places.
Right.
Well, it was in one place, but it's not in either section here. So we may have to bring this back and look at it again.
No, you're correct though, Judy. I think you're right. We
When
did
do you
make,
send it back?
yep,
Yeah, I think we need to send it back and look at it again.
okay. Is everybody good with us
I-
sending it
I
back?
don't- I have to go and look at the minutes, because I didn't have a copy in
Yeah,
front of me.
it just looks
So I
like,
have
it
no
looks like
handwritten-
this is the
Yeah.
old one.
It may well be, I have no handwritten notes.
Right.
Right, I do remember that. Oh, yep,
Yeah.
we did talk about that. All right, we'll send it on back. All right. Moving along here, number 4, this is C10, community engagement and vision. Someone like make a motion to approve this policy. Judy wants to take it again? Maybe. Would like to second it.
Where's Dave that gentleman?
Would like to. Somebody?
Sure, I'll second.
All right, Julie seconds, beautiful. Any discussion on this policy? All right, we're done. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. Let's see, we got that one. Now number 5, almost done here with this one. All right, this is a CC7 or 07 officially by the policy. It's board member education. Just says we're gonna do our best to get educated on for being a board. And yes, I did that 2 weeks ago or something. It was fun. It was good. I enjoyed it. And VSBA has a bunch of stuff online, so that you can check out. Does everybody get those emails? You receive the emails from VSBA?
The content is good. I went to the first year, the 2-part first year. Yeah, that was good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Someone like make a
Jim,
motion.
you get VSBA emails?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking, I'm like,
Yeah.
all I get is Callie, Angela, Amber, Kathy, Angela, Lauren. So I
So
don't-
she doesn't, because we get.
I'll check and make sure it should go to all of our board members.
Someone like make a motion to approve this policy?
So moved.
Okay. Second by, Jamie.
All of
Somebody new. Still Jay though, still Jay. All right, any more discussion on this policy? Nope. All right, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Beautiful. And now, the final one is C8, it's 08, our board superintendent relationship. Which they can do a good job with that. Someone like make a motion to approve this policy. Judy, gonna go for the final one, all right, 6 for 6, or no, 5 out of 6, sorry, 5 for 5. Who'd like to second it? Julie does, all right. Any discussion on this policy? All right, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right. Whew. Done with those first set policies. All right, next is new business, and we actually have a 5-year review of financial impact of merger. And I believe this is
And
gonna
that
go
is
Cheryl.
I'm going to, if I can figure out.
There you go.
There you go.
They were hard.
We've been through this.
Okay, so we're gonna look at the 5-year analysis. So in October of 2017, the merger committee approved the merger report and the articles of agreement. The documents were presented and ultimately approved by the voters of Ludlow-Mount Holly. And the merger study and the articles of agreements, they can be found on the, right now, they can be found in the folder, and there's a thing that says 5-year analysis, a folder that says 5-year analysis. I've asked Kelly to put it on the website, but I couldn't find it, so I have to ask her again where she put that. But we'll have it there. So Article 15 of the agreement says that the financial analysis of the merger by July 1st of 2013, the board shall,
23.
I've been about 10 years back, huh?
10 years back. Let's see, we made it on time though. We did it. We did it.
So it ultimately says that they'll be presented and with a detailed financial analysis of the merger for these districts and shall publish the report and the findings and analysis to the public. And this is what we're doing right here. The information in the slides are an assumption in the merger study and the actual revenues and expenses of the last 5 years. So just the timeline, which we all know that the Ludlow-Mount Holly Unified Union School District was operational as of July 1st, 2018. Black River Middle School High School closed in June of 2020. And as of July 1st of 2020, LMH began to tuition 2 other schools on behalf of LMH for the 7 through 12. So there's a lot of numbers here. So a couple of the key things I'll point out to you is the first column is the merger study, and that's the information I took right from the merger study. The next column over is the actual for 2018, which was before the merger, just to give you an idea of what those numbers look like. And that is not, it's each of the individual schools. So it's Ludlow, Mount Holly and Black River individually added together. And so then I have our actual for 19, 20, 21, and 22, and then what our budgeted is for this year. So across the top is the expenses that we had, and the next line down is the revenues. GSSG is General State Support Grant, and that's the monies that we need to be raised by taxes in order to support the school budget. And then we have our local funding, which comes in from multiple different sources, which has changed because now we're in a block grant, but it was some of the special ed reimbursement, it's our carryover. And as you see, as the years go down, we have less of that. Hot lunch revenue and any monies that is not tax related comes into that line. So when you look at the change from before we merged to the budget that we have this year, it's up $158,755, which is over a 5-year period is really good. The General State Support Grant, which is the tax money we need to raise, has increased $561,706. So, and that has to do with that declining carryover that we've had because we've used it. So we no longer have it to add to that budget. If someone has questions, they can just stop me. So when we go through the actual years that Ludlow-Mount Holly has been in service, we compare 19 to 23 that we're in now, so that's actual to budgeted. There's been an increase of $243,743, which is a 3.4 increase, which is really
Over 3 years.
over over a 5-year period.
It's amazing.
So our General State Support Grant is up more than that. And part of that has to do with the fact that when we don't have revenue coming from a local source, we have to raise it from taxes. So that's part of that increase. So you'll see when you look at the local funds, in 19, we had $1,063,000 down to 652 with that. I think it's this year, we also had, this is a little skewed at that. We did the gym floor that year. And so the proceeds from the gym floor in there, which are about 200,000, which takes that down a little bit. So it's not as terrible. Equalized people, in the merger study, they had 363.14, which was for FY18. And you can see that decline over the next 5 years. So from the merger study to this current year, we're down 23.93 students. And from within the time of LMH, we're down 17.78, which is a significant number of students. And then for tuition students, the merger study had 131 students that they were going to plan to budget for. And you can see where we are in the 3 years that since Blackbird's been closed of the number of students. And while the 0.66 and the 0.33, it's a student that leaves partial year or comes in partial year. That's why it's not a whole student. So looking at the tuition costs, the merger study had projected 16,000 back in 2017, which was probably more appropriate at that time. But you can see now as we look at the budget for 2024, I did add that we're back up closer to 130 students. And we're not terribly far off of that, but our announced tuition cost for this year is $17,278. And that announced tuition is the average of 7 through 12 high school students in public schools. And so that's the average. So when we were paying for private schools, Long Trail or somebody not public, public school, Vermont Academy, that's what we're paying them. We don't pay them their full tuition. We only pay them this announced. Any public school, we have to pay their full tuition. And it's a broad range what that tuition is. So
Roughly, what is that range?
Well, if you look at that last column in 21, it was 16,233, and next year is projected to be 18,266.
Or that includes the publics?
No, that's just the announced tuition for the private.
No, I was asking a different question, like what is the range that the publics charge that we're obligated to pay?
I think Woodstock's really the one of the highest, and I think they're at 19 this
Yeah.
year.
19,
Yeah.
so quite a bit.
Bellows Falls is like 18.5 this year. Springfield's up in the 18-19 range.
What's Mill River, do you know?
Mill River is creeping up there. They were, I think they're over 17 for this coming year. Green Mountain's down to 17.5.
What are some of those like private ones like MSJ or?
So we don't know what that
Low.
tuition is, because we're only obligated to pay so if it's less than that, they should be billing us less for that. And a lot of schools do, because there's Rutland Christian Academy and like King Christ the King.
Yeah.
They're significantly less, and they bill us for what that is.
So, how much of the increases are reflected that, one, we did cost savings like combining classes? You know, I know it's really low, but if we hadn't done that, it would have been higher, as well as the independent school, all the kids that went there that could have been tuitioned.
Yeah.
How much would that have increased it? Because if
That's a great
those kids come back into the fold, I just think that this number looks awesome, but it could have been quite a bit higher had we not had those two things happen.
I would agree with that.
So I'm not sure I'm totally understanding the question.
If we wound up in terms of what our tuition costs it would have been in FY 21 and 22, if we had actually been paying for the 14
15 kids.
students, 15
Okay.
kids
So I see.
at their tuition rate, we would have paid considerably more and seen a greater increase. And if our overall costs we made some reduction in staff over the last year or two, and if we hadn't made those, we might have seen some higher costs as well.
Right.
I think the tuition is probably a bigger
Right,
chunk.
right.
Yeah, and so the FY 24 budget would include those students. Because we have included them every year. But the numbers that you see in 21, 22, and 23 are the actual that we pay.
Right, right, I know, I'm just saying it's a little bit of like a false positive.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah,
I don't want the state to pat themselves on the back too much about the merger, that's all. Could have been a lot higher.
Mhm.
Do you put up, was it this? Or the one before? Yeah,
Sorry.
so, do you have any like FTEs, before that, sorry, the full-time equivalent, like the number of staff?
I don't have a staff comparison.
Okay. I mean, if the number of people, the number of FTEs on the budget has,
It's similar to what Judy's talking about.
yeah,
Well, that might go to, I see, you have a page where there are savings. I guess we should let you keep
Well-
talking, sorry.
You know, it's hard to know what to include in here, because
Yeah.
you could go wild with everything.
Yeah.
When Black River closed, the number of FTEs was reduced.
sure.
And that is offset by we're paying tuition. Right, so
And our enrollments have decreased by 18-ish. So that should be a negative 18. In that last column.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I'll fix that.
No, it's just a typo.
You read it so much that it just says what you want it to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. So the merger study, again, this is about cost per pupil, yields and tax rates. The merger study, again, this is what was actually in the study. And then the actual information again for 19, 20, 22, 23, and where it's, well, yeah, I guess it is actual because that one doesn't rely on actual expenses. So you can see that the cost per pupil, well, we know our equalized pupil has declined. Our cost per pupil has gone up, which actually makes sense because you're dividing a bigger number into by a smaller one. And that yield, and this is the yield that decides the tax rate, that has increased. But it's also, you can see our tax rate. So in the 1921, I think last year was the last year because we get 8, 6, 4, and 2 cent tax decrease as an incentive for the merger. But so this $1.49 for this current year is actually
Remarkable.
yeah.
We're paying 3 cents less than we were
For the merger.
when it was started.
Mhm.
But it's also, Judy's point's well taken too, though.
Yeah. So some contributing factors, health insurance over the last 5 years has increased 49.6%.
What the heck?
We've had equalized pupil decline by 23.93. We budgeted the tuition, so that when we base our tax rate, we're basing on paying the kids for the expeditionary school that we don't end up paying, but it does have an impact on our budget. Financial support from the towns, the expenses, we had trash removal, crossing guard. I think they paid a rec fee to use the gym, annual booklets. That was all lost in the merger, but really wasn't considered in the merger. And then COVID, and I really didn't think I needed to elaborate on that because that's the budgets. So where are the savings? The merger study predicted $610,000 once Black River closed, and the savings was under $400,000. Some of that has to do how special ed was handled. They added the expense, but they didn't consider the lost revenue that we would have from not having the pairs at Black River. Lost hot lunch revenue from the high school, tuition revenue, and the financial support of the towns that we had. In addition, one thing I kept trying to stress during the merger, but I'm not really sure that I was heard, is that the Ludlow Elementary building and the Black River building shared the PE, art, and music, and those maintenance costs and utility costs were split between the two schools. When Black River closed, all those expenses became the budget of the elementary school. And so that significantly increased the cost of that budget. The merger effects on each town. So Dave Bettner, I met with him because this seemed to be a passion of his to get this information out. And his question.
He's not even here.
He's not even here.
On Zoom.
But his question to me.
Dave, you better watch this, Dave.
So his question to me was, he wants to know who's subsidizing who.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with that one because I think we've tried really hard to make Ludlow and Mount Holly schools a community and as one. And so to start going, you did this and you did this, and this is I have a hard time with this. But I'll present what he asked. And the answer to the question is it depends on what you're looking at. So when you look at the tax contribution, and this is for the current year, Ludlow contributes 50.22%, Mount Holly contributes 41.55%. And we have the local, comes from various sources. When you break it down by per pupil based on the budget, so this is the actual budget that we worked on and the enrollment. Ludlow's budget cost per pupil is $18,827, where Mount Holly's is $13,307. And then when we look at square footage, Ludlow's a bigger building than Mount Holly, so their square footage cost is 36.51 to 78.24 in Mount Holly. So.
Right.
It's all on how you're looking at it, what you want to look at, and where you want to pull the information from.
We're still
to do
one
that.
district.
Right.
We're one district with two schools. Yeah. Not two towns.
So the takeaway, the Ludlow-Mount Holly budget has increased only 3.4% over 5 years in its existence. Such a great accomplishment considering the inflation that we have. The pre-CLA tax rates have decreased over a 5-year period, a great accomplishment again, because our cost per pupil has increased 14.88%, while our equalized pupil has declined 23.93%. So the merger study was created in the fall of 2014, and the information included in the study was from that year, and the focus was really on when Black River was going to close. So in my opinion, there was a lot of considerations left out, such as inflation, revenue loss, shared costs that are no longer shared, and it's kind of hard to make a comparison.
I want to make that go away. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's hard to make the comparison to like what it is to what it has, but I think overall, I really was surprised when I looked at the numbers that they were. This is a 3.4.
I think as you've said in another place, that we're required to do a 5-year study. But really, the difference in what we're doing didn't happen until the school was closed in 2020. So we're really only at 3 years. So it's 5 years from when it came into existence, but the big change happened when the school and tuition started being paid. So you're looking at really changes over the last 3 years.
So maybe in 2 years we want to look at it again.
Yeah.
I think we should.
So additional information or clarification, you can contact me or Lauren. So this will be posted. It's supposed to go public, and I don't know how else to make it public other than the website and present it at this meeting. So if any, feel free to share. I'll make that correction and repost it into the folder for the negative, so that that is read correctly. Comments, questions?
Great person, very good.
Good fiscal management, Cheryl.
The board's doing a good job too. I think our board is doing a really good job.
And Cheryl knows how to make a PowerPoint.
Yes. Good job. Good job.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The pressure's growing.
I just put it on Julie.
We're in trouble. All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Put a little note on, we'll do it in 2 years.
Okay.
All right, so now we have 8 first read policies. We're not gonna go through each individual one of these due to time. We got a whole month to read about these. So the policy committee, when we met, we did a great job and went through all these in 1 hour. So we did a phenomenal job and it was great. And then the last 2 are the ones that that are required by August. So I was wondering, the VSBA F3 fire emergency preparedness drills and the VSBA F4 access control and visitor management. I was wondering if the board would like to approve those on our board retreat, so we make the deadline prior to August 1st.
So we can put that onto the formal agenda.
Right.
Which means as long as we have a quorum, then the Ludlow-Mount Holly Board and the Green Mountain Board at that same time can approve them. We will post it 10 days in advance for that, and hopefully the TRSU board, which hasn't done a first read of them yet, could do a first read at the retreat as well.
The policy committee hasn't looked at these 5.
No, we have. We looked at all 8 of those.
Got it.
And it's the last 2 that were the ones that are required by
And
law.
it's really a boilerplate
Yep.
policy. We can't change anything about it. It was handed to us from the state.
The VBSA, the 2 VBSA ones?
Yes.
The state is requiring that we have it by the
Got it.
start of the school year, and VSBA
Yeah,
wrote it.
VSBA wrote it
Right.
and they made sure it was okay with the state.
Got it.
Like,
Understood.
sounds good.
The last part about that though was with the F4. There is in there a section that we discussed in policy of wanting each one of the school districts to have some input about.
That's right.
So because there's optional in here, the district recognizes the need to leave its structure unlocked as needed for a purpose. And the policy committee did not know whether there were any such structures on any of the property in either Ludlow Mount Holly, or then in turn, I suspect that there are some for Green Mountain with athletic sheds and things like that. So we'll talk about it for Green Mountain tomorrow night, but we did want to hear
Right.
here so that we could potentially do the second read if there are needs to leave any structures on either of these campuses unlocked at any time for recreational purposes.
Would you know?
We at Mount Holly, we have what people call the baseball shed. It's by the baseball field.
And
With
is it
that-
left unlocked?
Kind of, it has a lock, but if we really care about it being locked, we should change it. Because I just learned like very recently that people have figured out how to like stop, give it a jolt and pop the lock, pop the door open even though there's a lock.
Can we ask the two principals and you can pass it on to Doug Fishwood to check with like maintenance or whatever, and if there is, to get, when's our policy meeting?
We're not doing it.
Not long before the 20th.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I like, just for that one thing, that's just kind of a quirk that I just found out about, and I don't see a need to leave it unlocked, like I could give a key to Nick Neely.
Yeah.
We could replace that lock and then make sure the athletic coordinator has it. The coaching, so we might need to make copies of that key.
All of
You know,
which is
because
okay.
shed.
This really is just a question of whether there's any building
Correct.
that for any reason we're saying doesn't need to be locked.
Right, does not need to be open.
I think the answer is
So
no.
no, so we can take that sentence right out.
For Ludlow-Mount.
Cut A.
Mhm.
I'll fix it.
And then, Todd, we're gonna ask that question tomorrow night.
Okay, you can explain it again tomorrow night.
All right, anything else on those policies? We got you guys got a whole month, well, for the first 6 of them, and like I said, policy committee went through them in an hour, and very impressive.
Thank you.
Was very efficient. All right, moving along here. All right, the legal representation for PCB lawsuit.
Right, so I'm sorry for the lateness of sharing this particular document with you. I talked about this with Paul already because the attorneys who sent this just wanted a response quickly. That there has been proposed, and the law firm of Lynn, Blackman, and Manitsky, Pietro Lynn and Heather Lynn are our attorney representatives through VISBIT for our various employment law issues. And Pietro had contact with these other law firms. They reached out to every superintendent in the state of Vermont to say that they are proposing a possibility of a contingency fee, essentially a product liability suit that would be brought against the people who manufacture PCBs. And not necessarily going forwards, they're still in the gathering information stage, but they want to know which districts are interested in being included in this if it should move forwards. That's where they are with it. Probably, my understanding is about 70% of the districts within the state of Vermont have said, yeah, include us in this in case we need to. Now, at the moment, as we just heard, at the time they were asking this, we haven't yet heard back about Mount Holly's. But right now, as far as we know, we don't have any of these issues. On the other hand, we didn't think we had some issues with PFAS, and then all of a sudden the numbers and the reporting change. That my understanding of this is that it doesn't obligate us to any expense. It doesn't obligate us into any kind of an issue or a problem. If at some point we want to pull back out of it, we would be able to tell them that we would just as soon not be involved in this. We can give written effects to that.
But Lauren, I'd like to add something real quick to that. So something I have learned just in the past couple of weeks is that PCBs, even though, and I don't want to scare anybody, but just because Mount Holly didn't test for any, or another school didn't test for any, doesn't mean that there aren't PCB material in that building. If all of a sudden it ages, it could be in something and just not going out anywhere right now. You could retest that in 5 years from now and have completely different readings or have the same ones that you have now. So which they did at one school where they found, I don't know, I don't want to say the name of the school, but they tested and it was like at 150, and when they found where it was coming from, what was coming out was like 4,000 parts per cubic meter or whatever. That's what it could have admitted, but it didn't.
This just lets us be included the same way.
Right. So I would say, yeah.
Hold on, I got Julie and then Judy. Go, Julie.
My first question is whether deliberate and if it has to do with action or the fact of retaining council as an open session topic, but so I guess that's
At
a
this
question.
point, I don't think that's, I mean, if we were talking about details of what we might do with it, what we might get from it, then you're correct. But at this point, the question is just, do you want to be included?
Either options.
All right.
So this is just kind of a feeler, if you will,
Yeah.
from the legal team, whether we would want to be involved if they decided to move forward with the lawsuit.
That's where it is at the moment.
Okay, so what do you need from us? A motion or
I need
consensus?
you to give me the authority to sign on your behalf.
Julie.
Yeah, I took a look, calculated, and I did some sloppy drafting, and so I don't know if now is the time to discuss that, or if I should circulate red lines, or.
Well, I'm going to say that given the way this exists at the moment, if you want to have a discussion about those specific things, that would be executive session,
Okay.
rather than doing that in an open session. And also, if you're going to do that, then we can't move forward with it until that happens.
What would the board like to do? I mean, I was okay with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I figured since it was in the early stages, it would be okay to be included. I mean, we can. Yeah, that's a tough one.
When do
Unfortunately,
you need an answer by?
They needed an answer 2-3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So I gave them the answer that was consulted with the board chair, who said for us to tell them that we were interested and then to confirm it with the board. And the board at this point could say we're not interested, or at least not at this time, and I'll let them know.
What is the driver of the deadline?
They want to be talking with the other firms about our attorneys who are part of Visit want to be telling them that we have this number of people who are interested in moving forwards, which is part of how they're deciding whether they're going to move forwards or not.
So, if we decide to go forward with some sloppy drafting,
I mean, we can always send them notes that tell them that we would like to see these changes to it and see what they do with that.
And you can always withdraw.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think I would like to do that. So I'll make a motion that we accept this, or I'm sorry. I'll make a
Authorizing-
motion that we authorize you to sign this memorandum
Yeah.
and share with them that that we have concerns about sloppy drafting.
That'll work.
Well, they're the right to terminate this
Right.
contract is some questions. Understand that the way drafted right now, even if we withdraw from their group, would still be on the hook for costs incurred to date. So there is some risk if they undertake some work on our behalf. Number two, while this describes our ability to terminate the contract fees to date, it doesn't our responsibilities if council wants to terminate the representation. You know, they so far, and then they say, we don't want to continue on this, whether we would still again be on the hook for fees and costs.
And it is so that the compensation is paid to them based on a third of the settlement.
In addition to fees, and that's paragraph 3, is that we will be charged, you know, in addition to the regular contingency rate, will be charged filing fees, deposition costs, traveling, videography. There's a whole roster of things that we would have to pay in addition to. So like presume if we didn't recover, we would still have to pay.
Well, at least my reading of it is are to be deducted from school district share of the proceeds.
But if there's no, will we
That's
still be
right,
responsible?
but that's in paragraph 3, that all of those expenses are in addition to the third that they're going to get would be deducted from their share of the proceeds. I didn't read this as being something that says we would have to pay anything
Unless
there was recovery.
recovered.
I guess I'd like to be clear about that. I think it indicates what our sort of financial commitment to this thing is.
And again, my understanding of it, and in all ways, my verbal understanding doesn't matter, it's what the piece of paper says. But the understanding from the people discussing this is that no one's going to pay anything to anybody unless there's a settlement.
Okay, so we did that, so we have a motion. Does anyone want to second Judy's motion?
And it's okay if you rather not, that's
Can you join it later?
That's what I'm wondering.
maybe.
Maybe not.
Anybody want to second?
Can, what additional reassurance would you need, Julie, to get behind it?
Well, I guess my position is I agree with the concept, sure.
You just don't want to
I
stop.
just want to be completely clear what we are getting into, what our fees could be, what risks, you know, to manage the risk. We don't have a huge outside counsel legal fund here, so I just think we should put what that likely is potentially.
Again, I would just go back to the school districts and councils agree that expenses incurred in the pursuit of claims referenced above are to be deducted from school district share of the proceeds of any settlements or recovery. So I did not read this as having any financial liability for it.
I would, if it haven't been seconded yet, I will second the motion.
Dave Martin seconds the motion. So
So if we don't do it and we incur a problem, we're not going to get any.
Well, not with this thing, but having said that, there are other conversations happening at the state level about whether the state is going to try to pursue some actions themselves. I don't want to imply that if we don't do this, that everybody's just out in the cold. There are likely to be other possibilities, and it may well be the case that if I tell them that we're not prepared to do this without additional information, that they'll give us additional information and then be able to come back into it again. So I don't want anybody to feel pressure into doing it. If you're not comfortable with it, you can decide not to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand Julie's point completely about putting us at financial risk the way it's written.
Yeah, and again, I would disagree. That's not how I read it. I don't think it puts us at financial risk. But
Julie, do you want to point to the text where you think we are opening ourselves up to?
Sure, I would add a sentence to paragraph 3 that says something like, in the event that no proceeds or there are no proceeds of any settlement recoveries, that it's clear the school district won't bear the burden of the litigation costs. The other, making Evan a mutual, describing a mutual of direct withdrawals or council withdraws. And then there are, we are referred to as, so in the top of the paragraph in the whereas portion, we're called the school districts, but then later in the contract, it's referred as companies, which is probably just recycled from some other form, but Mount Holly is also misspelled. And then there's a question about TRSU, its own legal entity, or is it only Green Mountain and Ludlow? Green Mountain and Ludlow are identified in this.
Well, TRSU is its own entity, but TRSU does not actually own the buildings.
Got it.
I wonder if it might be appropriate to ask our superintendent to consult perhaps with the VSBA and maybe some of her colleagues for a further recommendation as to whether we should go ahead with this or not.
I just can't imagine why there's a deadline to indicate interest. That seems, I mean, I can understand if there's a court-driven deadline, like all potential plaintiffs must join litigation by deadline. But in this case, it seems like very much exploratory. So I guess I just don't understand why a couple of weeks of delay is impactful. I mean, I guess the point I'm making is it seems like a big deadline.
It's entirely, as I said, entirely possible that if we tell them that we want to not be included in this until we hear more information, that they'll provide more information and then say, okay. I mean, it was never presented to me as if we don't hear from you by this date, you're out. It was presented to me as we need to know whether you're moving forwards with this because we're looking to move forwards with it. And if you're not going to do it, then let us know.
Can we ask you to tell them that we're interested, but have some concerns about the wording?
Well, I'd have to tell them that we're withdrawing the permission that I initially gave them based on the statement, which was, I asked whether, I told them that I wasn't having these board meetings until today and tomorrow. And I was informed that if the board chairs gave authorization to let them move ahead thinking we were going to be part of it, that we could, and that if I talked to everybody and you didn't want to do it, then I would tell them that we were withdrawing from it and they would remove our name from that list. So I can do that and ask them for more information and see what happens.
More time. Because I'm thinking like it might be something that we have to do July 20th, or maybe we could just have a Zoom meeting and vote on it.
So we
when get the
can, I'm
information.
thinking we should table this motion because we have a lot of,
Yeah,
right, a lot of questions and I don't think now's the time to make a vote on it.
Well, I would also suggest that if we're going to talk about all of those very specific things, then it shouldn't be an open session. If we're going to
Right.
start going through all of that, we should be
right.
in an executive session to do it. And I'm going to suggest that should not happen at July 20th.
Right.
Because we will not have
Right.
time.
Yeah, we'll have
Like I
a,
said, like a Zoom meeting.
yeah, we'll do a special meeting. Yeah, we'll do a special meeting. I think.
Is it possible to amend the motion to give you the authority to sign?
So at this point, you're gonna have to tell me what you want me to do.
But could it be contingent on Julie wanting, it seemed like that was really one specific thing. You really want that language to reaffirm that if there's no proceeds, we're not gonna have any.
And I'm gonna tell you that
It's
they're
already
gonna say
says
that it
that.
already says
Yes,
that.
that, yeah. I agree with that.
But I can ask him for one.
All right.
Yeah, I don't see, it wouldn't hurt them to.
Right.
To
So we'll
double down on the
I
language.
think we'll table this motion, we'll do a special meeting, and you just let them know that we're gonna.
But that's gonna take more time.
I will let them know that Ludlow-Mount Holly is not part of this time. If that's what you're instructing me to do.
Could someone clarify the answer to the question I just asked? Could you affirm Lauren's ability to sign contingent on they'll add the language Julie's asking? But then that won't take any additional time.
Do you think they'll have the language?
I have no idea. And my only contact with them has been with the attorney that we work with, has been with Lynn Blackman and Minitsky.
And so they are local Vermont counsel for the firm, and one's, I think, a Missouri or Michigan firm. They're recruited to,
Lynn and Blackman are really
They're a
very
decent
well-known law firm in Vermont that specializes in education.
mm,
They are actually very good.
I suspect though that this came from, I mean, if this might not have come from them, I don't know.
You may well be right that the language in here
Yeah,
came by from other people, but it was reviewed and circulated from attorneys we work with and that I trust.
so I mean, folks, we can appreciate, I mean, identify what is, we can that even just cite gray areas in my read that we still feel strongly enough about to commit now.
I would hate to lose the opportunity to be in on this, because I think if anything happened, we could get a good settlement, you know, and if we lose out, then there's a financial risk there. We're working things.
And I will certainly ask them to give us additional language.
I think we should keep it, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, I think we should keep it the way it is and we should sign it and get it done. That's my opinion.
All right, well, any more?
I'm gonna call the vote.
We're just
Let's
gonna call the vote. Let's call the vote, yes, all right? All right, I'll do a roll call vote here just to be what we're doing. So first I'll start there in Zoom land, so go ahead, Maria.
I vote to keep the language and sign it.
Yes.
So,
Aye, so you say aye.
Aye. I'm sorry. Aye.
Dave,
I will vote aye.
right? Go Judy,
Aye.
Jamie.
I feel like I don't know enough, and I
You can abstain.
You-
want to abstain.
Okay. And then Julie,
Also feel like I don't know enough. It would have been helpful if one of these folks, I guess, joined to talk to us a little bit about this. So I'm going to abstain also.
okay? And I'm aye. So it's three ayes,
Four.
four ayes, no,
Two extensions.
two abstentions and no nos. Yes,
I'll ask for the additional
so
information.
it passes.
And because I would agree that this is less than pristine language, and we'll get the additional information from them.
Yeah.
And I can ask Peter or somebody to come to a meeting to talk about
That would be
the details of
useful.
it too. So,
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Good job, everyone. Good job. That was- All right, next, approval of the fiscal year 24 tax appreciation note. Anticipation.
We don't appreciate it.
Tell you what's in here.
So for the new board members, this is something that we do annually. for cash flow purposes, because the taxes aren't due till like August, and I'm not sure when they're doing the holiday. Our taxes due in the holiday, October, you pay once a year.
know.
I think it's October.
Is that terrible?
So we don't always have the cash flow because our money comes from the town. So we get a tax anticipation note to carry us over for that time. We only borrow from it, from the line of credit when we really need to. So this year I'm asking for $900,000. I think it was 9,500 last year. And the interest rate this year is 4.24%, which is up from the 2.15 last year.
Wait, how much? How much are you asking for?
900,000,
I'm sorry, what was the interest rate again?
4.24. Whilst you have your discussion about that, so when, I hope you would make this motion on this, but, I would like to have the motion include that, you authorize Paul to sign, so I don't have to chase all you down to sign, have it signed, and we've done that in the past. And that the lawyer, I'm gonna share my screen again if I can. The lawyer, for the bank has asked that, the board be able to review this document, that they're gonna give Paul authorization to sign. It is in the folder, so you won't need to like read it here, but, it is available for you to sign.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to obtain a tax anticipation note in the amount of $900,000 at 4.24% and authorize Paul, our board chair, to sign the loan.
All right, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That's on the Dave will second that. Discussion on that in anticipation note. All right, hearing none, all those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And next, now we have an approval of a revolving loan for the Mount Holly Water Project.
Okay, so while loan is in the title, it's a grant, but they only have one form. So they use the same form for everything. So it asks a lot of questions. It primarily has to do with the water project. So this is the PFAS. And so the changes that we've talked about the last few months about them building the building to hold the whole water thing. So they've gone back and done changes. And now the loan, I think we started out just about 200,000. Now we're at $1,109,927.05.
Can you say that again?
$1,109,927.50.
This is the grant, no.
So this is a grant. We have increased it since then because of each of the steps that we've been through, and then this whole thing about building the building and has changed all that.
200 was ridiculous to begin
Yeah.
with.
So part of the cost here, so it's the construction of the building, but in addition, when you're working with federal dollars, you have to follow the Bacon-Davis law, which guarantees fair wages for your contractors and whatnot. And it is a huge, huge amount of documentation that has to go with that. And we have to do it with EEI, so when, well, actually you guys aren't, that would be a bond. In Chester Andover, we're doing a project out of ESSER funds and we're having to follow all these rules as well and work with that contractor. Thankfully, Otter Creek will handle all that. And that's paying for them to do all that work as well, which is massive for that. So again, I'm looking for an approval for this application. And again, having Paul sign it, I also need Judy to sign it as clerk. But if the board would authorize Paul to sign this application, I can get it submitted and we can start moving forward.
So it's called an application for what?
It's a state revolving loan program for the water infrastructure financing programs.
It's scriptingly all
So-
the tongue.
It's
The state written down and I want to.
Cheryl, can you Stop sharing your screen.
Oh, sure.
Do I have to give an amount?
That's up to you.
So what would happen if?
Well,
we
is,
say-
is the amount
So if you
the 1,109,000?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
So what happens if we say no?
You don't get the-
Well, I know, I'm asking the hard questions.
Then you close Ludlow and Mount Holly.
So actually, it would mean that this would go through our insurance,
Oh,
which is going to affect our rating, which is gonna affect our.
there we go.
So I'm gonna make an attempt here. I'm open to amendments. I would like to make a motion that we approve the application for the state revolving loan program in the amount of $1,109,927.50 and allow Paul to sign the application
For the board.
for the board.
I wonder how
Okay.
many years of bottled water that would be.
I'm gonna answer your question, Craig.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yep.
Okay.
I second.
All right, Maria seconds. All right, so you said that. Discussion on the motion. Is that, yeah.
Well, my discussion is, Cheryl, does that motion cover it?
Yes.
Okay.
Nice job, Jay.
Any discussion on that motion?
So it's a grant or a loan?
It's a grant.
It's a grant.
That's
They
called
only
a
have
loan.
one
It's the
application
state.
that says loan on it.
Oh,
So
I
keep
see.
asking that question. You sure this is grant?
So then after insurance.
It won't. But he said, what if we didn't do this grant?
Oh,
Right, I was just asking if you
Not
said,
in the
Grant,
Okay,
then it would
no.
go through insurance and then.
Okay.
right, I just was asking the hard questions.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, any more discussion on the motion? Motion. All right, all those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right, well, that was fun. Now, what you want to say, Todd?
So we had this discussion with the environmentalists and the Department of Water, right, which runs this. Craig and I, actually, Craig doesn't remember, he's gonna remember when I mentioned it. We talked about how much money could we use and just use bottled water forever. Now that they're involved, we cannot do that. The state will not allow that to happen, even though it's that much cheaper, we have to keep moving forward. That's why there's this revolving loan that's a grant and insurance company. As of now, it shouldn't cost our taxpayers anything for this project, as of now. But, and not to make everybody, try to make everybody feel better, Killington's going through the same thing times 100. So they're astronomical, their PFAS problem in Killington. So it's statewide.
Shouldn't make anyone feel any better because that's costing us all
Yeah.
even more in
Yeah.
taxes. And what are we paying, like $1,000 a year for bottled water?
And it's unfortunate. It's
A lot.
unfortunate because we could have just, it would be a ton cheaper just to keep using bottled water.
So you can do the calculation, but
You know, the first
Right.
grant that we had, that was the 200,000, they put $50,000 in for bottled water, and I thought, we're never gonna spend this.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Well,
Three years later.
$5,000 a year. There's 1,000 and a million.
Right.
So how many
Hey,
freaking years?
that's the
There's been a
state.
lot of maps tonight, you know.
The state goes, I know, got the math theme, you know, geez.
Julie, you can do that, like, how many years?
We were right there.
All right.
A lot of years.
All right, well, that's the state for you, so we're moving along here, it's getting late here, I'm going past my deadline. I know, 8:20, I'm sorry, everybody, I'm gonna hurry up. So the TRC board report, sadly say that we accepted Lauren's resignation. And she's gonna stay on board with us until we find a replacement, so, which is sad. Hopefully she'll apply for her own position, but all I'm saying, but. Right, but I know, but that was the bulk, that was the big thing, so, and there was a lot of people that attended that from the public, and so, because of what's going on the Green Mountain side, but overall, that was like the big highlight of the meeting was that, so. That's all I have
Did
to
we use an external search firm? Redundant search?
They have not, but you certainly.
Right, we're not gonna start that until the next school year, we'll start the
Okay.
proper, whatever you wanna call it there, procedure for finding a new superintendent.
Would you like to answer?
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Don't want to be out of order. $1.1 million divided by $5,000 a year is 220 years.
Really? That's what's that got to do with TRC board report? That's for public comment. All right, so that was it for the board, the TRSU, I think that was about it.
Yeah.
So, all right, and then policy committee, like I said, we did all 8 of those in an hour, so we did really good. And now we got facilities committee report.
I think Todd already gave a sufficient report on, our next meeting will be on next Monday, and after a good walkthrough last month.
All right, excellent. Any questions, concerns? All right, cool. Let's see now. So the policies that were approved at this meeting real quick was E14, communicable disease mitigation measures for student and staff. It's A1, role and adoption of school board policies. We brought, not that one. All right, C10, community engagement and vision. C07, board member education, and COA, our board and superintendent relationship. So those were approved at this meeting. And then, all right, excellent. Public comments. Any public comments? It's bad that my computer died, so I don't see anybody on Zoom land. Way too long here. Everybody good for public comment? So nobody out. All right. Next meeting day and agenda. It will be July 20th, and that's our all board retreat from 8 to 3 at the Cornerstone at Jackson Gore, and we're going to add the 2 policies to be approved. Those required F3 fire and emergency preparedness drills and F4 access control and visitor management. So we can meet our deadline by August 1st, and the state will be happy with us. So. Anything else on that agenda? Maybe the representation for the legal counsel for the
I sent a note
All right.
to them, so we'll
Excellent.
see whether
right,
we get
And
a
then we'll-
response for that.
right, and then we'll have 6 more second reads plus maybe 7 for C3, so we'll have at least 7 policies to second read and approve. And
For August, you in August?
oh yeah,
So we're,
oops, sorry, I jumped the gun on that one.
so we're also gonna discuss Todd's transportation.
Okay, and Todd, this is for August. So,
Are we doing regular this on the 20th?
no, just the 2, just the 2,
Okay.
yeah, 2 policies. And then a regular board meeting in August. Sorry about that, everybody. That would have been August 9th is our regular board meeting. And that'll be at Mount Holly, or nope, that'll be
That'll be
actually
here.
Ludlow again. That'll be here. So, because it's an even month, so we'll be here at 6 PM,
August what?
August 9th. Right, and then we'll have those 7 policies second read. We're gonna find out about the person talking for the PCB lawsuit and Todd's situation for stipends or however we're gonna approach that.
Not that this really matters too much, but on that agenda page, my name, I'm missing my E. And Vicky.
Okay,
We might fix it.
yeah, we will fix that. All right, and I think that's it for them. All right. Final is our self-evaluation here. I got a million pieces of paper, know it by heart by now. All right, last thing so we get out of here. We've been given and read the agenda and background materials prior to the meeting. Yes, we have. We respect each other, the public and administration. That's a thumbs up. Yep, we handled conflict openly and constructively, and 2 thumbs up for that one. We did good. And then let's see, we focus on the roles and responsibility of the board. Yes, we did. We're good board members. And we act as a team when decisions been made. We work collaboratively throughout the decision making. That's another double thumbs up. So that was really good. All right, motion to adjourn. Julie
Maria,
gets
can
a
you
second.
hang on for a second after the recording's off, because I have to tell you something.
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry, who was the one?
Judy and Katie. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so it is 8:25. Long meeting, sorry.
Longest meeting I've ever been in.